Real legends behind Red Dead, Butch Cassidy and the Wild Bunch.
Nothing means more to me than this gang. I would kill for it, I would happily die for it. I wish things were different.
The Red Dead Redemption games are set in fictitious American and Mexican lands, but are very much based on lore and myth of America's Old West. Developer Rockstar Games adores the era. Heck, they even recommend classic movies such as The Wild Bunch and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Yet those legends of the Wild West were based on very real and very dangerous people. There are many tales, legends, and myths from this era, but perhaps none like that of Butch and his Wild Bunch. Butch Cassidy wasn't always Butch Cassidy. The man behind the myth was born Robert Leroy Parker to British immigrants in Utah. He was the first of 13 children and worked in ranches while growing up. It was a cowboy's life for young Parker, but it wasn't long until he adopted the name Butch Cassidy and his life on the left side of the law truly began. According to legend, Cassidy's first heist, if you can call it that, happened when he was a teenager. He thieved a pair of jeans from a clothing store, along with some pie, and even left the store owner an IOU. The nerve of the boy. Funny as that was, it could have put him on a very different path from where he ended up. You see, the law got him and put him in front of a jury, and the jurors acquitted the boy. At the age of 18, Parker rode east to Colorado, where legend says he drove herds of stolen horses towards the Centennial State. He fell into horse racing after meeting Matt Warner, another Old West outlaw. Cassidy's first real heist took place in 1889 at a bank in Telluride, Colorado. He and his crew made off with $20,000. That was a lot of cheddar back then, and worth at least a cool $500,000 today. He got good at being an outlaw over the next decade, got himself his famous hole-in-the-wall hideout, and even fell in love with another bandit, and her big sister. When he eventually did get locked up, his 18 months in the hole only invigorated him for all the thieving to come.
One more big score, we got enough money to leave. What do you think?
One of the last gangs of the American frontier and the greatest bunch of train robbers the era has ever known was the Wild Bunch. They were a group of crooks and desperados, including Butch himself and his infamous partner in crime, Harry Alonzo Longabaugh, better known around these here parts as the Sundance Kid. Together, the Wild Bunch, Butch Cassidy, and the Sundance Kid robbed America blind. And by the turn of the 20th century, they'd stolen what would have been millions of dollars today. Cassidy pulled a whole lot of train robberies, but one of his best-known jobs is the Wilcox train heist. The story goes that early on June 2nd, 1899, a train was stopped by two men on the Pacific Union Railroad near Wilcox, Wyoming. The driver thought the men meant well and were about to warn him that a bridge was out. But they were actually bandits from the Wild Bunch. They boarded the train at gunpoint and forced the driver to cross the bridge. The Wild Bunch then blew the bridge up with TNT so they couldn't be followed. Next, they blew up the locked cars with dynamite. Inside, the gang found a safe and blew it open with yet more TNT. And what did they get? Well, as legend goes, that day the Wild Bunch made off with a cool 50 grand. Others say it was around only $30,000. Whatever the amount, it was one of the largest scores in train heist history. The wild bunch scattered to the four winds after 1905, but Cassidy and the Sundance Kid stuck together, fleeing to South America. Both supposedly continued their lawless ways, and at least for them, business was good. One day, they held up an Argentinian bank and vanished into the Patagonian wilderness with a large sum of cash. But their days, like any outlaws, were soon numbered. The partners ended up in Bolivia, where Cassidy and the Kid got on the wrong side of the law robbing a local. They didn't know it then, but it was the last job together. After Bolivian police tracked them down to a boarding house, they surrounded the property and got into a bloody shootout with the gringos that lasted well into the night. Legend goes that after darkness fell, there was screaming inside the house, then one gunshot, and then another. The next morning, the men were found with shots to the head. It's believed that Butch Cassidy killed the wounded Sundance Kid to end his misery, and then turned the gun on himself. Or so it would seem. There are those who believe Cassidy lived on and died much later. Some say he returned home to Utah and lived well into the 1930s, when he would have been in his twilight years. But whether that's true or not, no one can say. What's true though, is that bad guys like them weren't always running free in the Old West. In fact, there was a certain group of lawmen who hunted down the rogues of the American frontier. Lawmen with a knack for detective work and a penchant for gunplay.